And this episode is sponsored by Upstart. Saying goodbye to high-interest credit card debt is one of the first steps towards financial independence. But the interest month after month can feel like you're in a never-ending hamster wheel, and that's where Upstart comes in. Upstart has helped over 1.8 million customers on their path to financial freedom. Their personal loans can help you pay down high-interest debt all online with simple and easy-to-understand payment terms. Upstart also knows you're more than just your credit score, so rather than looking at your credit score alone, Upstart's model considers other factors like your income, employment, and other information provided in your loan application to find you a smarter rate for your loan. And you can check your rate in minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000 without impacting your credit score. You can even receive funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. Don't wait and check your rate today at upstart.com/MrMakeItHappen. That's upstart.com/MrMakeItHappen to check your rate today. Don't forget to use the link in the description box to let them know I sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/MrMakeItHappen. What's up, guys? Welcome back. The weather is officially changing and starting to warm up, and that means it's cookout season. If you're looking for something new this spring or summer, I have just the recipe for you. Today, I'll be showing you how to make this delicious paella. But before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, guys, meet me in the kitchen. Let's make it happen. First things first, we're getting the party started with a delicious homemade seafood stock. For that, we're gonna need some lobster and shrimp shells, an onion, carrots, and celery, a bay leaf or two, some better than bouillon lobster base, and some Spanish saffron. Super simple ingredients that most people already have at the house. Making your own seafood stock is a great way to elevate a dish. You can add so much more flavor by doing it at home versus buying it from the store. This is a great move if you're making something like a gumbo or maybe like a risotto, anything like that. Making your own stock really takes things to the next level. All we need is a nice sized pot that we're gonna put over medium heat. We're gonna add a little touch of avocado oil, that way things don't scorch or burn in there. And then we're gonna add those shells to allow them to start to release some of that flavor into our stock. This is also a great technique to make sure nothing goes to waste. So anytime you have leftover shrimp shells or crab shells, anything like that, pop that in the freezer and you can break those out anytime you wanna make your own stock. All right, so we added our mirepoix, which is carrots, celery, and onions. We also added a tablespoon of better than bouillon lobster base just to beef up the seafood flavor a little bit more. And now we're gonna fill this up with water and let that simmer for a couple hours. Quick reminder, guys, that all the specific measurements and ingredients for this recipe can be found in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. You wanna make sure that the stock is at a gentle simmer. You don't want it at a rolling boil, and occasionally you wanna take a ladle and spoon off some of the stuff that piles up at the top. Those are impurities that just kind of rise to the top. It's optional, but it does make your stock look a little bit cleaner at the end. And now, my friends, we're moving on to prepping our sofrito. For this, we're using 1 yellow onion, some garlic, and a red bell pepper. You certainly could cheat a little bit and place all of this in a food processor or a blender, but I'm trying to show off my new knife here. So we're gonna dice all of this up nice and fine, starting with the onion, then moving on to the garlic, and then finally the red bell pepper. Once all of those ingredients are evenly diced, we're gonna mix them together in a small mixing bowl and set that aside until we need it for later. And then we're moving on to our Spanish chorizo. We're gonna use about a pound of this chorizo in total for this recipe, and keep in mind, guys, that Spanish chorizo is a bit different than Mexican chorizo, so when you're at the store, just make sure that you pick up the right thing. Personally, my preference is to dice the chorizo up into small bite-sized pieces. That way it kind of gets well incorporated into the rest of the dish. But you can make it a little bit larger if that's your thing, totally up to you. And at this point, we're almost done with our prep work. So once that's diced up, we're gonna set that aside. Then we're gonna drain our stock that's been simmering for a couple hours. You wanna strain that through a mesh strainer. That way we catch everything that we don't want in our stock. Once we've successfully strained the seafood stock, we're gonna add that to another pot over medium heat and break out the saffron. Saffron is super expensive, and I guess that's why it is sold in these little drug dealer containers here, but a little bit goes a long way. So you can spend the money once, you don't have to keep buying it that frequently. So we're gonna go ahead and add just a pinch of saffron to that stock, allow that to simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes and infuse all of that flavor into our stock. And now we have a saffron seafood stock that's gonna flavor our paella. Taste as you go and adjust the flavor to your preference. If it needs some salt, go ahead and add a pinch or two of salt and then taste again, make sure it's just right, and then set that stock aside until we need it in a few minutes. Next up, we're gonna heat our paella pan over medium-high heat. This is a 12-inch paella pan that I got from Amazon. A 12-inch paella pan is good for about 4 to 6 servings, depending on how hungry you guys are. Once your paella pan is warmed up, we're gonna add that chorizo that we diced up earlier and allow that to get nice and brown. It usually takes about 3 to 4 minutes. The real magic here, my friends, is that fat rendering from the chorizo. That's gonna act as the foundation of flavor for the rest of this paella. Once that's happened, we're gonna go ahead and add in our sofrito and let that sweat down. Just get in there with your rubber spatula and move that around. Make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom or the sides. Your house is gonna be smelling absolutely amazing. Thank me later for that. Next, we're going in with some tomato paste. You wanna mix that in as well. Quick reminder, guys, that all the specific measurements and ingredients for this recipe can be found in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. Next, we're gonna hit this with a little all-purpose seasoning. That's my blend of salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder. If you don't have that, you can get yours via the link in the description box. Next, we're going in with some smoked paprika as well. Give that a mix. Once those veggies have softened up a bit, it's time to deglaze the pan. We're going in with a little dry white wine, something like a Chardonnay. Use that spatula to scrape up any fond off the bottom of your paella pan. That is where all the flavor is at. We don't want to miss out on any of that. No flavor left behind, my friends. Give that a good mix, let that come up to a simmer and kind of cook down and reduce a bit. For those that are trying to avoid using wine or any kind of alcohol when cooking, you can do the same thing with some chicken broth. And now we're moving on to the seafood prep. You're gonna break out some nice sharp kitchen scissors, cut down the back of the lobster, and then take your knife. Use a little force to break this right in half. We basically wanna just cut the lobster tails right down the middle, so you can repeat this process for each lobster tail. Make sure you clean them up nicely, rinse them off with some cold water. Make sure you remove any veins or anything like that. When it comes to paella, you can use whatever protein you enjoy. A lot of recipes call for chicken. Today we're making a seafood paella, so we got some lobster tails, some clams, and some shrimp. You could also throw some mussels in there. Unfortunately, my grocery store didn't have any for whatever reason. I was a little disappointed about that, but we're making the most of it. We're gonna season our seafood up with some all-purpose seasoning. A little salt and pepper would work just fine as well. Use whatever seafood seasoning or all-purpose seasoning that you have at home that you enjoy. Now that we have our seafood seasoned, we're gonna set that aside for just a moment because we need to add our rice to our paella pan and let that begin toasting. As you can see, that wine has reduced beautifully. All the fond is scraped up off the bottom of the pan, and now we have a flavor-filled situation on our hands. This is the perfect time to reduce the heat. We're gonna add our arborio rice to the party and allow that to toast a little bit. You want the rice to kind of puff up a little before we start adding any liquid. So stir that rice in over medium-low heat and just give that a few minutes to kind of start absorbing all that flavor from the paella pan. Let it toast a bit, and then we're gonna start hitting it with some of that seafood stock here in just a second. There we go. Go ahead and add the seafood stock to the party, and then you do not want to stir the rice anymore. You just want to allow this to simmer, allow the rice to absorb all that flavor. Traditionally, this is made over an open flame, but if you want to cheat a little bit, you could pop this in a 375-degree oven and just check it every once in a while to make sure the rice is cooked. That's the easier method, but sometimes you don't get the crispy rice at the bottom, which is trademark for a good paella. You'll notice that a lot of the liquid will begin to evaporate and the rice will start to puff up a bit. Once you see that, you can start adding your seafood. You do want to test the rice before you add the seafood to make sure that it's most of the way cooked. You don't want it to still be crunchy. There we go. We're gonna arrange our lobster tails around like this, make it look nice and pretty. Once the rice is partially cooked, we're gonna add the rest of the seafood that takes a little bit shorter of a cooking time. You always wanna add what takes the longest at the beginning. So we started with the lobster tail, and now we're going down with the clams and the shrimp. Those cook really quickly, and the rice should be done perfectly right around the same time. So go ahead and arrange those shrimp around as well. We got a beautiful little presentation starting here. I'm gonna cover this with some foil for a few minutes to allow that seafood to steam and cook a little bit faster. That's totally optional though. And there, my friends, is our finished paella pan. We added some lemon wheels to the party just for a little presentation, and lemon just goes really well with seafood, of course. Hit that with a little fresh chopped parsley or cilantro if you're feeling frisky. Brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys. Looking good. Oh man, look at that. Serve this up at your next cookout, and I promise you your guests will be happy. The crispy rice at the bottom was achieved. Let me know in the comments if you know what the term for that is. Going in for the taste test, I got a shrimp and a fork full. Oh man, definitely a fork drop recipe, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give your boy a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the bell to enable notifications. And as always, thank you for your support.